Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we are going to be looking at a team, a build that I first showcased, I think about a year ago. I don't really remember when exactly. Whenever Demytha came out, this was one of those teams that I showcased, and I haven't really visited since, but it's a really good team, and so I wanted to show it to you, and thankfully, I had Flag Splasher, one of my Patreons, come to me and ask me for help with Clan Boss. And if you guys need help with your accounts, you can be much like these people on screen right now and join my Patreon. There's links in the pinned comment description of this video. I can give you some coaching so you can understand how the game works a little better, or just help you with a dungeon team or an arena team or your Clan Boss team, whatever it is you need. But he came to me asking for help with this Clan Boss team, and so of course I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. And these are the things that I do out here. So let's go ahead and build this team for you. And I was looking at the account, kind of short on the gear. Pretty good champions, but not all of them are leveled up, not all of them are booked. So definitely a little bit of playing with things in order to make it work. And so seeing a Maneater, seeing a Demytha, I really wanted to build this comp, but the speeds are pretty high for the Maneater particularly, and we didn't have great speed gear on this team, and I didn't want to destroy his arena team in the process. So what I did was I brought in Urogrim. He's going to be a speed or a lead for us, and that's going to drop the speed threshold by about 20 speed on all of our champions. So our DPS can go really slow. That means I can really build the attack and damage up on them, and we're going to be able to make those speeds for our faster champions, Demytha, Jintoro, who I'm going to be bringing in, as well as Maneater. Now, I'm hopeful with any Unkillable team, you should usually be able to get at least 3 keys, if not a 2 key on Ultra Nightmare, because you're lasting 50 turns. Just bringing poisons, you're going to get 3 keys. But I really want to get to that 2 key spot. I have Jintoro in this team. I tried Venom Mage, didn't get the results I wanted. I have Jintoro. He's not fully booked, and he actually had 0 books on him. And I was going to go ahead and book him, but we have CVC coming up in just a few hours, so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to use his books for that. He can do that on his own time. It's just going to up the damage and lower the cooldown. So knowing that, understanding that part of it, let's go ahead. We're going to do the run so you guys can see what kind of damage this does. But before we get into the run, I want to talk a little bit about how this team works and why it works the way it does. I'll show you the setup, and then we'll do the run, and afterwards I'll show you the champions and how they're geared out. This is the team that we're bringing in. We have Urogrim as our lead, giving us that speed aura. He also does a pretty decent job of giving us more poisons. Not a great poisoner, but definitely enough to help us with this fight, and I think that's going to be a useful person to bring in here. We also have Draco, obviously is an amazing champion, right? Just does all the great stuff for us. And then we have Jintoro here. And Jintoro is just such a good champion, but he's completely unbooked. We don't have any books on any of his skills, unfortunately. So his damage numbers are definitely going to be lower than they should be. Not to mention his cooldowns aren't going to be, as low as they could be either. So once he gets booked fully, what I would actually recommend is on Draco, turning off the A3 skill, not worrying about that decreased defense and weaken from Draco. Let Draco do damage, and just let Jintoro place those debuffs for us. I think that would be the way to maximize the damage on this squad. Of course, we can't do that right now because he's not booked, and the decreased defense and weaken won't be consistent enough. So not worried about that now, but that is something going forward where I would look to do with this. We do have a Maneater in here as well as a Demytha. Now, the way this team works is basically Maneater's on a 5-3 ratio. It's going to take 5 attacks for every Clan Boss cycle of attacks. So that's going to allow his 5-turn cooldown on his Ancient Blood to actually refresh every single time. And so he's going to be able to place Unkillable on us, as well as the block debuffs for everybody, both for that second AoE as well as the stun. And then Demytha, of course, is going to use her block damage ability to make sure that we don't get killed by that first AoE. And with that, with those 2 champions, we stay unkillable for 50 turns. Not that crazy complex. But the hard part is, of course, the speeds. And the speed ranges are really tight on this. I think I was messing with Demytha, and I forgot that she's only level 50, by the way. She's only level 50, 5-star. And because she's not level 60, her base speed is lower. That actually threw off the entire comp, and I failed a couple times because of that. So you got to make sure you check all the speeds on these champions with the sets and the Lore Steel mastery, because it is going to have an impact, and the speeds are pretty tight on this. But that's the setup. The way I have this set up, actually, it's full auto for Ultra Nightmare. Nightmare, we have to manual just a little bit. For Ultra Nightmare, though, this is a full auto team. So let's go ahead, jump in, and see how the run works. As I said, this is a full auto team here, so we jump right in. I have it set up in the presets. That's what made it happen. We've got Maneater needs that 1 turn delay for Ancient Blood, and Demytha needs a 2 turn delay for her block damage skill. They do need to be booked in order to make that kind of thing happen. But you can see we've got the Unkillable up, the block debuffs, and we're going right into the fight. And then once the stun happens, Demytha's going to actually put her block damage up for that first AoE. Now we're not fully in sync until I think about turn 6 on this. At that point, we'll be completely unkillable and we will block all the debuffs. As it is, we're going to be completely affinity friendly from the jump. That's not something we're ever going to have to worry about because of Maneater's amazing abilities. But you can see we're getting some poisons from Earlgrim, not a ton. We have a bunch from Draco though, so in general we're a pretty full debuff bar for this type of a fight. Jintoro, of course, would be able to help keep that decreased defense and weaken up for the entirety of the fight, but it's going to be a little bit more iffy because of his cooldowns, because he's not fully booked. It's not going to be 100% chance to land it all the time, so that's definitely going to be an impact on us. We do have Draco though, so Draco's going to be putting up decreased defense and weaken, and that's definitely going to help us with this, right? Because of that, Draco's going to ensure that we have that up for at least the majority of fight, at least for the AoEs, and so that should give us a pretty solid baseline damage-wise. But yeah, this is a team. We're going to just kind of let it run here pretty much, and I think it should be pretty good overall, but we'll see. We'll jump towards the end of the run, play some music for you guys, and come back afterwards and talk a little bit about this comp and look at the champions. There we go, 29.5 million. That's not too bad. And in fact, this is gonna be a 2-key team, guaranteed. I guarantee it. Not only is Jintoro gonna do way more than 7 million damage once you book him, I would imagine somewhere in the 10 to 12 million range, but also Maneater doesn't have War Master on, not fully mastered. Demytha, still only level 50, so obviously doesn't have War Master on. That's probably gonna be another somewhere between, you know, I don't know, somewhere between like 2 to 5 million. I would probably say about 5 million between the two of them, right? It's another probably million or 2 million for each of them, right? So like there's definitely enough damage in here just by mastering it, even without the books, that we should be able to get to a 2-key team. So I think this was pretty significant, pretty good, considering where the account was at and what we had. I'm pretty happy with this, but let's look at the champions. Let's start with Maneater here. You can see he's got a bunch of mixed sets, and pretty much all these champions have room to grow, as I have not, you know, rolled up all their gear. We ran out of silver, so couldn't do it all. But we have, you can see, 267 speed. That's with that Earlgrim reduction. Normally that's 287. It's a high speed threshold to make for this type of a comp, but because of Earlgrim, it becomes a lot more accessible to build all these champions out. We do have 100% crit rate, so that's pretty good. Mastery-wise, you can see we've just started the process. Haven't finished it at all. Once we get War Master, that's easily another million or 2 damage that we're going to be tossing on top of all this. Not to mention finishing going down the defensive tree down here to Retribution and getting some free counterattacks in. That's also going to up our damage considerably. We've got Demytha, the other unkillable champion, only level 50 here, right? Now, one thing you'll notice is base speed of Demytha is only 95 at level 50. So once we get, or I should say 5-star, once we get her to 6-star, that's going to jump to 102. So we'll have to re-gear in order to make that work. We needed 152 speed with that base speed. At 102 base speed, we would have needed 151 speed, so it does affect things, and I had to change that in the calculator. But you can see we did get 100% crit rate, and actually some decent crit damage, just not a lot of attack on her kit, unfortunately. As far as her masteries go, we went down the offensive tree and the defensive tree. The only thing left is to take War Master. That's all we got to do to make this one work. Then we have Urogrim as our speed lead champion. You can see a lot of accuracy gear, crit damage, no speed. There's still room to roll a bunch of that stuff, especially the accessories, but 141 speed, really slow. I did try to build him with as much damage as possible, right? 100 crit rate, almost 200 crit damage, only 217 accuracy, so we can definitely glyph some of this stuff up, hopefully, and improve that. We have the sets and stuff. We just really need to add the glyphs to really get it up to a higher threshold, and then we should get more poisons up, and it should be a little bit more consistent having a full debuff bar. That'd actually be really good for us, but there's definitely room to improve that. Mastery-wise, we went down the offensive tree and went down the defensive tree to Retribution, so we can get those free counterattacks and more opportunities to place those poison debuffs. Then we got into the big dog. I'm talking about Draco, of course, the only champion with almost everything rolled up, but see that ring. That ring still needs a little love there. We've got Draco at 160 speed, good crit rate, good crit damage, good accuracy. Like, he's pretty set. The attack's all right. We'll get that over 5,000 once we roll that ring up. There's definitely room to improve here, and glyphs can do a lot of that work for us. As far as masteries go, when offensive tree and defensive tree, I like those counterattacks with Draco. You can definitely go support and try to get those poisons to stay on longer, but I'm more concerned about overfilling that poison debuff bar, and I'd rather get the counterattacks because his A1 can hit really, really hard, and so we're going with Retribution on him there. And then very last is going to be Jintoro, and as you can see, there's room to roll all this stuff up too. We've got him at 204 speed. Again, that Urogrim ability, I love it. Normally we'd need him at 224, but minus 20 gets us to 204. It's great. 100% crit rate, really good crit damage and accuracy. The attack's a little bit on the lower side, but at these speeds, it's going to be very hard for this account to build that in there. But I do like it. We're gonna be probably over 4,000 once we get everything built out, and so he should do significant damage for us. But as I was saying before, he's totally, completely, 100% unbooked, and so getting the cooldowns means he's going to get that crazy multi-hit ability back sooner, means that his debuffs will be up more often and stay up more often, and he's just going to do more good damage all the way around. So I expect we're going to get a lot more damage out of him. As far as masteries go, we did go down to the Retribution because he does do so much damage on his hits, and then the offensive tree as well. Now, I went down War Master. All of his hits are single target hits, so it doesn't make sense to take Giant Slayer. It's great for that one time when he, does those multi-hits, but it doesn't come up often enough to justify actually using Giant Slayer on him. I definitely recommend War Master. And that's the team. That's the build. I thought it was really good. I think Flag Splasher is going to be very happy with that. I don't believe he was expecting a 2-key Ultra Nightmare team, and I'm very happy to be able to put that one together. This is a very cool build. The Myth Eater is a really nice comp, and if you guys don't have speed champions, this could be an excellent option as opposed to doing something like a Myth Air build, right? This is going to keep you affinity friendly. This is going to work for Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare. There are some little caveats for Nightmare, right? The one thing you have to remember is because Jintoro is going on a 4-3 ratio, right? He's going at 204 speed, 224 without the aura. He's going fast enough to get an extra attack in there. So he's taking 4 attacks for every 3 the clan boss is doing. That's great for a damage dealer, right? He's going to get even more opportunities to hit and hit hard. The issue is, though, he will outrun the Unkillable buff on Nightmare specifically. So for Nightmare, you just need to make sure that he's not taking the stun. That means if you have an affinity champion that's like red affinity there, you're going to want another red affinity DPS champion ahead of him in the order to make sure he doesn't take that stun. So that's really the only caveat you need to really worry about. And if it fails early, you need to pay attention to the healing mechanics going on there. Is he healing up enough with those with the Life Drinker Mastery, or do you need to actually give him lifesteal gear? Those are definitely alternatives that we have available for us. And if you're going to put someone in that 4-3 slot, you want to make sure they are someone that can hit hard and does damage, not someone that just puts up poisons or something, right? I would not want to put Urogrim in that slot because he doesn't do enough raw damage to heal up enough with the Life Drinker Mastery, right? That's why Jintoro is a great option there. Draco would even be a really good option there. These are champions that hit hard enough to heal up enough to avoid taking that stun. So that's the build. That's the team. I don't know. I was pretty happy with it. Hopefully you guys were too and enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe and notification bell. And guys, till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.